Hello, I'm Dex, and welcome to Whips in the Dungeon. We actually had a question. I don't get very many questions on the channel, and I don't know if that's because of the nature of the content that we're teaching about. Makes people shy. And Bunny, what are you doing? We're doing a video. We have a new puppy. This is Bunny. Bunny was born on Easter, and she is a party color. Traditionally, they're all white. This is a coton tulear, which you may not have ever heard of that breed, but just think literally of a cotton ball that runs around my kitchen and dust mops it. So she's a puppy, so I don't know if she's gonna let us do this unabated or if she's gonna come in and out of our video, but we had a question from Rick Rivet, and it was actually an excellent question, and I want to dig deeper into it. He asked me on Fetlife. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to ask a question on YouTube, or they're shy, so they just write me on Fetlife, which is fine. I'm Dex on Fetlife. If you don't have a Fetlife account, then you might consider signing up for a free account. So let me put my Whips in the Dungeon coffee cup down and grab a couple of whips, okay? He noticed, he was very carefully watching my videos, which you all should do. He noticed that I was always throwing with the belly on the forehand side, and then on the backhand side, I was turning my hand over and throwing against the spine, okay? So a whip often will have a belly and what we call a spine. Sometimes I call this throwing with the spine and then throwing against the spine. Sometimes I call it throwing with the natural curve, the natural rollout of the belly, throwing with the belly and then throwing against the spine. If you really watch my videos closely, you'll see though that I'm always with the belly on the forehand side. On the backhand side, sometimes I'm against the spine, and sometimes I will turn my hand over, palm toward the whip catcher. And when I turn my hand over, palm toward the whip catcher, I'm actually throwing with the belly on the backhand side. So you can throw with the belly forehand and backhand, or you could throw a true backhand and throw against the spine. So Rick Rivet's question was, he said he's a little more heavier on the backhand side, and could he turn the whip over and throw with the belly on the backhand side and then against the spine on the forehand side? And the answer to that is obviously yes, you can. Absolutely can do that. That's not what I do, but if that works better for your style, you can definitely throw against the spine on the forehand side. Part of this, to dig deeper into it, part of this ends up being how we break in a whip. This particular snake whip has been broken in on what I call 2 dimensions. If you look carefully at the way a whip's platted, it will have 4 sides, okay? And so we've broken this in on 1 dimension, throwing with the belly, and then broken it in, throwing against the spine, and it will never have quite as good a rollout against the spine, but a whip actually has 4 dimensions. So when it's broken in on all 4 dimensions, it's actually going to hang straight because you've thrown it, turned it a quarter turn, thrown it, turned it a quarter turn, thrown it. You've thrown it and actually broken it in on all 4 of those dimensions. So a whip that's been broken in with all 4 dimensions obviously takes longer to break it in. But when it's broken in, you can literally pick it up and it doesn't matter. You don't have to think about, well, am I throwing it with the belly or against the spine, because you can pick it up and throw it in any dimension and it should roll out perfectly fine. This little signal whip has been broken in on all 4 dimensions, whereas the snake whip has only been broken in on 2 dimensions. So then we get into throwing styles. When I'm throwing single-handed, I tend to throw whips that have only been broken in on 2 dimensions, because I'm just throwing a forehand and a backhand. When I'm throwing two-handed, I tend to want to have whips, and these aren't matched. I tend to want to have whips that are broken in on all 4 dimensions. The reason for that is sometimes I'm throwing a 4-count Florentine, sometimes I'm throwing a 6-count Florentine, and when you throw the 6-count Florentine, it's advantageous to have your whip broken in on all 4 sides. So I hope that goes a little beyond Rick's question, but it was a great question. Very, very good question, and it needed adequate time to answer it. But the true answer is yes. You could throw a forehand against the spine, or you could throw a forehand with the spine. Conversely, on the backhand side, you could throw a backhand against the spine, or you could turn the whip over and throw the whip with the spine. Now, my original snake whip, which I call Old Faithful, this whip was made by Joe Strain. Old Faithful was a Happy Tails whip, and my style has evolved over the years. When I first started with Old Faithful, I was throwing a handshake grip, throwing with the belly on the forehand side, but then on the backhand side, I was rotating the whip a quarter turn and actually throwing a thumb push with the belly on the backhand side. What I found when I moved up to the strain whip is the way this whip was plaited, it didn't like being turned a quarter turn and being thrown that way. And so it just didn't behave itself on the backhand side. So I changed my style based on the leather, the way the leather was plaited, or the way it felt best in my hand. So this whip in my hand felt better throwing it against the spine, as opposed to that quarter turn where I could do a thumb push on the backhand side. So I hope that answered your questions. It's a long video. If you've stayed to the end, my goodness, subscribe, ring the bell, and stay with us on how we're learning to throw whips in the dungeon. As always, thanks for watching.